Welcome into Sports Around the Bar, your favorite sports talk show ever. And Drew, today, the offseason is in full swing.
Full swing.
As we kind of scrape the bottom of the barrel with something to talk about.
Even though it was in full swing, a couple months ago.
I feel like we're at the low point, right? Where like sooner or later, there's going to be some news that comes out that we're like, man, we're back, baby. The NFL is back. It's on top again. It's king, and we have everything to talk about. Everybody wants to talk about the NFL. Everybody wants to watch things about the NFL. Today, maybe it's that point. Maybe this is the turning point today.
I just want to tell you how great that beer tasted.
Yeah, number 7's always the best. Let's talk about...
It's not 7.
4, 5, 6?
It's 7.
You've been at it for a while. And I have too, if you haven't tell. Who am I to cast the first stone? Anyway, welcome in, guys. We're glad you're here.
I felt like you casted it.
Today, we are talking about Rob Gronkowski retiring, not going for that extra Super Bowl run with Tampa Bay this year, even though his teammate and longtime friend Tom Brady has returned there. And we're also talking about Deshaun Watson settling 20 of his 24 lawsuits, Drew. He's finally almost out of the woods.
He's that much closer to playing.
He is, and you're being sarcastic, but you might actually be right here.
Completely.
He might be closer to playing because this is done.
No, the NFL is still going to suspend him.
We'll talk about that in a minute. We're also going to talk about worst to first in divisions. Which team has the biggest chance of losing their division last year to winning it this year?
Did you say Titans?
That's first to worst, the other way around. But we are going to talk about both of those as well as everything you guys have in the comments as usual. And let's get right into it, man. Rob Gronkowski. Hall of Fame.
100%.
Instantly.
100%.
Greatest tight end ever? In the conversation?
In the conversation.
Okay.
Because statistically and ring, yes.
Right.
100%. No question.
Uh-huh.
First ballot Hall of Famer. No, there's no doubt about that.
Is it just the longevity?
Physicality?
I think healthy Gronk, as physical as he was, you don't think Gronk was one of the most physical tight ends ever? One of, if not the most. I mean, obviously you could point to like 12 blocking tight ends that probably are more quote-unquote physical than Rob Gronkowski is. Whatever. My point here being, when it comes to Hall of Famers, when it comes to guys that are going to be remembered throughout the years to come, and guys that you always point back to, I think Gronk might be the closest, if not the most physical tight end of guys that would just go out there and maul somebody on a running play.
Yeah,
he had that physical want, and maybe that's why his career wound up being shorter.
Yeah, it easily could be. Jacob, good to see you, man. He says, "Go Raiders." They're gonna be a problem.
That division is going to be so much fun to watch.
They are going to be a problem.
It almost doesn't matter who wins and who loses it because all of those teams are so stacked now that it's gonna be primetime viewing. I think you're going to get to the end of the season and every one of those divisional games is going to wind up flexed into a primetime spot because they're so strong.
Yeah, I can see that.
Is Darren Waller better than Rob Gronkowski? Not yet.
No.
Not yet.
No, not even close. I mean, you talk about, like, Tony Gonzalez. You talk about, oh, wow, I just blanked out his name. Gates.
Antonio
Gates. You're talking about, like, some of those players. Like, oh, man, it's such a different career because when they played, it wasn't what passing was when Gronk played.
Sure.
And I don't want to sit there and knock Gronk down. When I say his physicality, I don't mean that Gronk wasn't tough. Gronk was tough. He went out there and put his body on the line. His injuries showed that. His career length showed that. But, man, they put so much on him, and he accepted every bit of it, and he accomplished it all, and it ended up being championship caliber teams because of how much they asked Gronk to do. Because you think about, like, minus the season when they had Randy Moss and they threw like 50 passing touchdowns and is one of the best offenses ever to see in an NFL field. Gronk has been there in and out. With the stint with Aaron Hernandez, gone. The stint with no receivers at all, still winning championships with Gronk under there.
Julian Edelman would kind of push back on that, but yes.
Yeah, was Julian Edelman a Hall of Famer?
There are people who say yes.
That's
you're going to say that's crazy, but I think he has an argument. I mean, he might be one of the best slot receivers, and we just don't respect that position as much, right? We don't respect slot receivers as much as we respect the guy on the outside, the number one, the alpha, the guy that we all love, and say, who's going to guard this guy? But the guy that just like makes things happen on the inside of the field, there's value in that. There's value in that. I don't disrespect Julian Edelman on this podcast again. All right, he's probably the guy whose body type I have the closest to.
That's what you're worried about?
Yeah, don't disrespect him again, please. Frank,
what was that tiny running back? Oh, what was his name? Oh, that's the guy that you're closer to. What's his name? The running back, small running back. He played for the Patriots, and he went to the Chargers. Oh, what's his name?
Dion Lewis? I don't know.
No.
You got me.
Someone will let us know. You gonna do Brian's?
Let me start with Frank. He says, "Hi, fellas. I'm late as usual." Frank, no, man, you're always right on time. And Jake goes on. He's doubling down, man. He's saying the Raiders' offense is underrated with guys like Waller, Adams, and Renfro, and Jacobs. Don't let me forget any one of those guys. The skill positions are there.
Woodhead. Danny Woodhead.
Okay.
Your body type is closer to Danny Woodhead.
I just got to cut up a little bit, right? I got to get a little bit.
Your height is right there. Yeah. You're good.
Let me just say this about the Raiders' offense. They have the skill positions. I worry about the offensive line, but more on that later. Let's talk really quick about Gronk, because I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about Aaron Hernandez. This wasn't a guy who did it in a vacuum. Aaron Hernandez and him were drafted in the same year to be the next dominant tight end, and they almost made hay by just having Patriot tight ends,
they
right?
Did.
They counterpunched.
Brian, it's good to see you. He said Gronk is a totally different tight end, definitely one of a kind. And Brian,
I did miss that comment. Sorry.
It's all good. And Brian, I'll get to your comment about Watson later on when we get to that. Gronk made the basketball style large tight end, throw it up in the end zone and jump 100% work.
But he was more than that.
And I know people
had that.
And people might say, no, Antonio Gates was better.
Right.
But realistically, Gronk, he was just like, he was so big that it didn't matter.
Right.
Don't die.
I'm getting choked up thinking about him. One thing Gronk had, I think, that we're underrated. He had that go up and get it in the end zone. But he had that all across the field. He was almost that split between the guy that you would throw it to the end zone and he'd just be bigger than the cornerback and say, good luck out rebounding me to get this ball. But he also was the guy that you throw it to him in space and he'd have like 3 cornerbacks and a safety hanging off his shoulders as he dragged everybody down the field. Like, it wasn't one thing that made Gronk special. And I think that is realistically, we're not just talking about a Hall of Fame player, but arguably one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end to ever play the game, is he had not only the end zone sort of prowess, but he was good 20 to 20. You could throw him the ball at the 40-yard line and let him just stiff arm somebody out of the way. He could sit there and drag guys down the field.
Yeah.
He would juke guys or throw them aside. I mean, he was a complete tight end. And I think people underestimate that because he wasn't the fastest guy in the world. But outside of that limited ability, he was like the perfect tight end that you want to get out of every draft. And to not get him in the first round just shows you tight end is like throwing darts at the board, man. You don't know who's going to be good.
Mitchell, good to see you. He says, Gronk. And then Frank says, Gronk was a great blocker as well.
Exactly.
He was.
Most of the time,
okay,
you're that good of a wide receiver.
Hear me out. You're
not doing the dirty work.
Hear me out my statement, okay?
Gronk did the dirty work, especially against Buffalo safeties where he kind of nosedived into the back of their neck while they were laying on the ground.
Antonio Gates, when he came out, he was a former NCAA basketball player.
Right.
And they were like, that's what you needed out of a tight end. You need to go out and get a basketball player that can jump up, has good hands, and catch the ball in the end zone. Antonio Gates was one of a kind. Mm-hmm. Again, with Gronk. But then when everyone's like, that's what you got to go get, all NFL teams, every NFL team went out and drafted a basketball-style type of player to play tight end. And the one that truly made it through that era was Gronk. And Gronk became a Hall of Famer, I'm already calling it, through that, because of that.
No, I agree.
Because Antonio Gates,
wait 5 years.
I would say Antonio Gates is probably a better tight end all time over Gronk. And the only reason I said that is because Antonio Gates was the style of tight end that created Gronk.
And the only I think the other argument, a lot of other tight ends, guys like Tony Gonzalez, guys like Antonio Gates have over Gronk is the longevity. Gronk had to retire when he was, 29, 30 years old, had to take a year off, come back healthy to go chase that other Super Bowl ring. So there have been other factors in Gronk's career that other guys, Tony Gonzalez was the Iron Man. Even Antonio Gates, I know the last couple of years of his career when he was like 34 and 35 were injury-riddled and everything else, but those guys were Iron Men, and if there is one criticism to Gronk's game you can say is out there, It's simply the fact that he did not power through those sort of injuries. He had to take time off. Like the stress and the injury and all the damage that he had taken was just too cumulative, and he had to take a break. Yeah. Where he took that one kind of hiatus here and came back stronger.
Well, when the guy went out there, he had 2 elbows in the little mechanic thing. He had both of his knees.
That was how you stopped him. Remember, he said, how do you stop Gronk? You don't go up there and try to swat the ball away from him. As soon as he goes up to catch it, you put your head in his back. You put your head in his knee. You put your head in his thigh. And you just put the damage on him. And we saw that kind of accumulate over time.
It did.
I'm not saying I blame him, because one of those hits, and I'd be on the turf crying for mom.
Yeah, I'd be crying.
Yeah.
Karen, good to see you. She says Gronk had swagger and attitude. Yes, he did. He was fun to watch.
Not only was he a great NFL player, great WWE star.
Oh, my gosh. Stop with that junk. Jacob says Gronkowski is top 2 behind Tony Gonzalez, and he has Antonio Gates at 3.
Don't put me to the sword and ask me to put them in order, because I can't. I don't think I can. It's such a different game for everybody at tight end, because there are guys who you can make a career out of just being a wide receiver and never block anybody.
It's so hard because you look at like Kellen Winslow, which was before my time, 100%. And you talk about changing the tight end position was him. I mean, the reason you see tight ends catching the ball exclusively on a lot of teams like the Patriots is because Kellen Winslow showed that players that size could play that kind of style of football. Tony Gonzalez, as good as he was, I think, how can I say it? He played so long that his stats and his,
all the accolades come with the longevity. And there's something to it. You're Mr. You got to be healthy. He was Mr. Healthy.
That's what I'm saying. His fame was created the fact that he is on the field every time he played.
Right.
It's like, where can you throw the ball? You throw the ball at Tony. He's out there.
Right.
And Antonio Gates, the only reason I talk about him so much is because now the style of tight end that's played is because of Antonio Gates. 100%. Because look back at it. It was get the ball in the end zone or get the ball down the field, throw the ball in the end zone to a big tight end.
All right, we'll go and talk about Deshaun Watson because we have to talk about Deshaun Watson. But first I want to ask you this about Gronk. I'm going to wrap it up with this here. Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer in the NFL that has such a backlog full of guys that need to wind up in Canton? You know, you're only allowed having, 5 players and an auxiliary pick where it's like a coach or a ref or somebody related to the game, like a media person. So few people get into the Hall of Fame every year in the NFL by design. Is Gronk a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yes.
Is he a second or third Hall?
No, he's first.
I think he's going to have to wait. And
no
it's
way.
Crazy. There's so many quarterbacks that are waiting to get in the NFL. You got to remember, he's going to be coming up right around the same time as some of these other quarterbacks that might get kicked down the road. Like, I think Big Ben will probably wind up being a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he's going to be going up against Big Ben to get in there. Not to mention, there is such a backlog of guys that need to wind up in the Hall of Fame. It would not surprise me if the NFL looked at tight end and said, it's just not that important of a position when I have quarterbacks.
I disagree.
Defensive players.
Big Ben's your one that you're bringing up. Who's the rest? Drew Brees tired the year before.
He'll be a Hall of... Okay, so here's the thing. Drew Brees is going to be retired, and he's going to go in first ballot Hall of Famer.
Phillip Rivers was gone already.
Peyton Manning is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
He already is.
There are so many guys that, again, you can only have 5 every year.
I get it.
Right? You can only have 5 every season. So you have about 50 to 60 guys that should have been first ballot Hall of Famers going all the way back to like the 50s and 60s.
Well, don't get me wrong. There's people out there that get screwed. That for sure.
Are going to be kicked down the road, and you're going to have this debate between all the sports writers. Again, me and Drew don't get Hall of Fame votes, but we should.
Jacob agrees with you. He's saying the second year.
I think it'll be a second or third term Hall of Fame for Gronkowski.
I think both you guys are crazy.
Because they're going to look at it and they're going to say it's a tight end.
It doesn't matter if it's a tight end. Look at his stats. Look at his rings. He literally gets in there because of those things.
Gronk better be kissing some booties right now. That's all I'm saying. He better be talking up, whining and dining every media member he can.
The only reason that he does not get in first year is because other people retired the same year that he did. And the only one that I could think of is Big Ben.
Big Ben will
Who
be there.
else retired this year that makes you go, well...
Should I pull up the list of like backlog players that are still waiting?
No, because there's
still guys.
There's a reason those guys are backlog players waiting to go into the Hall of Fame is because they didn't get that first year.
I disagree. Obviously, the quarterback, 100%. Like Roethlisberger's going in first ballot, right? You don't win 2 Super Bowls for the Pittsburgh Steelers and don't just like sashay your way into Canton. That's not how it works. Obviously, the quarterback gets all the attention, but because it happens every year, like you're gonna have Peyton Manning walk his way into the Hall of Fame.
He did already.
You're right, actually. Yeah, was it this year he went in? Mm-hmm. But you're going to have multiple quarterbacks: Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, and every time one of those guys goes in, there's only 5 spots every year.
I get it. I get what you're saying.
Everybody else kicked down the line. I think Gronk is going to be more than a first ballot. And I would be willing to make a long-term beer bet with you that somehow, in some way,
5 years
Gronk
from
is
now,
not going to go in. We'll totally remember.
Yeah. That's exactly what we'll do.
All right.
I think you guys are crazy. I think Gronk will be a first-year ballot Hall of Famer, but, we'll see what happens. All
right, let's talk Deshaun Watson because we're, like, contractually obligated to talk about this in every show this offseason.
Let's go into Brian's comment because I told Brian I'd get to it real quick. Brian says, Watson will be suspended. The NFL has made an example of him, will make an example of him. I mean, he means Ray Rice's career was over after the elevator incident.
Okay, but one thing you need to remember about Ray Rice is his production was starting to decline already. And teams kind of looked at Ray Rice and said, look, you're already approaching 30. As a running back, you're not going to get a whole lot more valuable to me. So when all this came out, it was more a kiss of death for him because running backs don't seem to keep that up. You're talking about a 27-year-old quarterback. Guys play quarterback at 40 now. You're talking about 13 more years for Deshaun Watson, potentially. The reason I will say this, that the NFL, I think, might underwhelm all of us with what they choose to do for their punishment in Deshaun Watson is because they know that people tune in to watch good quarterback play. You don't want to watch Trevor Siemian play Logan Woodside in a game. You don't do that. You don't want to watch anybody's backups. You know who Trevor Siemian is. You might not know who Logan Woodside is.
I know who both those are.
I'm just saying, you don't want to watch football games to watch backups play football. And the NFL knows that. That is the breadwinner for them. And I bet you, when all this is said and done, I've heard reports saying it's going to be a year, it's going to be all the rest of this, and especially when you look at the way Cleveland finagled the deal to only have $1 million in Deshaun Watson's salary, so that's all they can fine him out of.
Yeah.
Cleveland's playing games, but it won't matter because the NFL says what gets eyeballs on the TV to make us money? It's going to be 8 games. I bet you it'll be 6 to 8 games, and everybody will be upset because it's not what he deserves. But it's what it's going to be because the NFL says this is how we make money.
I'll get to this first. Jacob says, facts, Ray Rice was already declining. Watson is a toss-up. Watson is a must-see quarterback with his athleticism and flair.
Exactly. You tune in to see Deshaun Watson play Patrick Mahomes, and as wrong as it is, that's what the NFL cares about. They don't care who does what. They made that impression.
It is wrong. And I think we've talked about this until we're blue in the face, is when does the NFL become judge, jury, and executioner?
And this CBA has changed that a little bit.
It has. I think there's a good possibility you see Deshaun Watson start the year and then end up being suspended in the middle of it.
Really?
And I'll tell you the reason why I think that is because I think the suspension would already be said and done. I really, truly think that the NFL was like, well, we're going to wait and see what happens with him in Houston. And you're like, okay, nothing really came of it. He sat out the whole entire year. And now he's traded. And no offense, Texans fans, but Cleveland's a bigger market. Browns fans, they're very...
I don't know about that.
Hold on. Are very...
It may be... I wouldn't say it's a bigger market, but I will say it might be a more dedicated market. There's more people in Houston's the third biggest city in the country,
which makes it a bigger. No. Let me rephrase
the Browns
myself.
Fans will show up no matter how bad you are.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know that the Texas fans will. There's some that will.
There might be more people in Houston, but they're all Cowboys fans.
It's tough being an expansion team. Let me say that. I don't know. When we're talking about Deshaun Watson, I don't think they'll wait to suspend him. I think it'll be the same thing where if this drags on, I think what the NFL is waiting for is all of this to be resolved because they don't want a Ray Rice situation.
But there's no guarantee it's going to be resolved.
It will in court. Well, that's the thing. They're putting the onus on him, and I think that's why we saw the settlement, why 20 of these 24 women have already been paid off. And they're signing non-disclosure agreements, so they can't talk about it.
You can't agree that they got paid off. You can't say they got paid off.
They did. You don't settle. That's what a settlement means. They got paid off.
It doesn't mean that. They could have been like, I will never bring your name up. Thank you. All right, bye.
They got paid. They got paid. Okay? But here's the moral of the story is, I think the NFL might be putting the onus on Deshaun Watson to settle all of these, even though they came out and said, we're not doing that. This just in. People lie at press conferences all the time. We're doing it to you right now. Seriously, though, the NFL will wait until all of these are settled. And the reason I think they want to do that is they want to... Do you remember when Ray Rice came down and Roger Goodell suspended Ray Rice for 2 games? And everybody, before that video got leaked by TMZ, where he was like, we got to see him knock his wife out, just Mike Tyson style in the elevator.
So wrong. Before
that happened, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with that. But let me just say, before that happened, the NFL said, let's throw 2 games at this. Whatever happens, happens. This will blow over. And then the video got leaked, and everybody was said, 2 games for cold cocking a woman like unconscious in an elevator in public and then dragging her unconscious body away is not enough. I think they're trying to avoid that level of embarrassment with Deshaun Watson. And again, a 24th accuser just came out of the woodwork. There's no guarantee this doesn't continue and we get more women coming out. He visited 66 or 67 masseuses.
I'm pretty sure I was in Houston giving massages during that time.
Karen, they'll drag it out. They're going to drag it out.
Karen says, women will be mad. And women do watch football too. He needs a 2-year, not a 1-year. She says that he is guilty, or he would have not settled.
Keep in mind, this is from a Browns fan. And I give him credit because I give Karen a ton of credit because when the Myles Garrett thing came down where he clubbed Mason Rudolph over the head, Browns fans were celebrating. That was a Steelers quarterback that we just knocked around. It takes a lot of maturity and a lot of self-awareness to say, listen, as much as I want my team to win, and Deshaun Watson will help them do that, we do need to still hold them to human standards and say that sexual assault is not okay. And I know you know that. I know a lot of shows would kind of preach that to you, that we're against sexual assault. Me and Drew are against sexual assault too, okay? Let's make that very clear. But the fact of the matter when it comes to Deshaun Watson is that the NFL, I still believe, will give him the minimum penalty possible to satisfy both their viewers. Like you said, women watch this too. But to satisfy their viewers, they will give the minimum punish possible to get him back out on the field because he helps their product. And unfortunately, that ultimately winds up being what is the bottom line in the NFL today is, do you help the product?
Let me get to some of these comments. Jacob says, off subject, what are you guys all drinking on? Well, my PBR is gone, so we are drinking Busch Light.
Your?
Yeah, I drink it. It's mine.
Fair enough.
You're drinking my Busch Light now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyways, Nathan, good to see you. He says Deshaun Watson is the Bill Cosby of the NFL, meaning that he'll get off scot-free and they'll be for...
Bill Cosby went to jail.
Yeah, he is free now off a technicality. He went to
jail for a year and a half?
A technicality, that man is free. He should spend the rest of his life in prison. Okay. He is now free. Anyways, Brian says he will be... Kind of going off you. He will be suspended at the beginning of the season, so his suspension will be over before the trade deadline. If Baker plays and plays well, it could drive up his trade value. That's, in my opinion, speaking exactly what the NFL wants. But I don't think they're going to cast judgment with allegations still being out there. And that's why I kind of feel that they're going to allow Watson to play.
I don't. I think he'll be either on the commissioner's exempt list, where you're suspended but not suspended, just like he spent with Houston when all this came out. I think they'll put him on either that list until they
see you, Jacob. Glad to see you, man.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for thanks for commenting. But I think they're going to take Deshaun Watson. They're going to stash him because they're scared to death that they're going to get Ray Rice, where all of a sudden somebody comes out with like a video of something like this happening, and the NFL just like has egg on his face again.
Well, they'll just pull him out of a game right in the middle of the game. Hey, buddy, you can't play.
No. But let me say this about Deshaun Watson. I think it's going to be 6 to 8 games. And I think we're all going to be a little disappointed with that. We're all going to say it's not enough. But at the end of the day, what sells tickets? Them having the Browns who have finally turned it. You think they wanted kneecap Cleveland, who is finally, after 22 years of suffering, Drew, that they want to have Cleveland suffer again with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback? Because I think the only way you see Baker Mayfield, to Brian's point here, the only way you see Baker Mayfield is if Deshaun Watson is just cast away for the whole season. If they suspend him for a whole season, which I don't think the NFL wants to do, is the only time you're going to see Baker Mayfield back on the field, because Cleveland needs to win those games. If it's 6 to 8 weeks, it's going to be Jacoby Brissett. That bridge is torched. They're going to trade Baker for whatever they can get, and then we're moving on, even if we have to throw away the playoffs.
I agree that the whole reason to hold on to Baker's a little confusing. Nathan says Baker to Seattle, and then Brian agrees that suspension will be.
And Mitchell says it's law at the bar. Yeah, I can't get away from it. I'm sorry.
Brian agrees that it will be 6 to 8 games.
It just sucks. This is what we're talking about.
Why is it that the NFL wants to hold on before they suspend or put it on a list that you can't play? It's ridiculous. Right now, the NFL should go out and say, hey, this is our plan. Even if they back it up, they should do it.
It's all about value. Again,
I get it.
It's all about value. If this was a linebacker doing this, I don't care if it's Bobby Wagner. You'd never play again.
The value.
This is a quarterback. That's the only thing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Suspend the man forever until it's not there anymore.
All they care about is getting people to watch TV.
I think there is no value in holding Deshaun Watson as ransom to us fans to see what's going to happen next. There's no value in it.
I think you have to do it. Like you said, so what happens if you throw that year-long suspension or the six-game-long suspension, 8-game-long suspension? What happens when you do that and then something comes out, like I said, one of these video leaks, and you're like, man, that's really bad, and I'm seeing it. That's exactly what happened with Ray Rice. They gave him a 2-game suspension. The video leaked, and everybody said, you cannot give this guy 2 weeks worth of a suspension for pretending he's Mike Tyson punching his wife in the jaw. You can't do it.
I also think there's an issue with the fact that the fans expect the NFL to be like, all right, decision made. They gave him two games. They saw the video the same time we did. They go, okay, let's dial this back in behind closed doors.
Can I push back on that? I think the NFL saw the video before. I think it existed. And they said, what can we get away with? And they said 2 games. And then
it's a possibility, yes. It's a possibility, yes. But when they found out it was probably, because when you're dealing with billions of dollars, you get corrupt. Money corrupts people. That's the reason why this show's fun and exciting to watch, is because we make no money.
That's why you can believe us.
But I'm serious, though. I'm dead serious about this. Why is it the NFL saying what it is? Why are they allowing Deshaun Watson and ruin the Cleveland Browns' future by allowing him to be traded if they're not going to let him play? That's why I kind of have this feeling, just a little bit, that he might play a game or two before they suspend him. It's a possibility, especially now with 20 of the 24 going away.
I just think it would be really bad optics if you let him play and you're like, oh, all is forgiven.
What's the optics that you don't like?
Him playing in the game, because the whole thing is the moral argument, right? Like, there is something you can do.
You talk about money. You talk about what's exciting. You're going to tell me that you haven't seen a player like Deshaun Watson, that kind of style, that kind of talent, and he gets to play for the first time in an organization that's a lot better than the Texans, and you don't think that's going to make a crap ton of money? I can tell you right now, week one, even with Kansas City playing, I'd probably be like, let's throw the Browns game on too, because I want to watch that as well. I want to watch Deshaun Watson.
I understand, but I think as a whole, you need to stand up for what's right as an organization, right? Nobody wants to do business with the shade tree mechanic, the guy that you know is going to rip you off when you bring your car there. And the NFL doesn't want to become that. The NBA went through that in the 90s, and if you remember, it was a long time ago, but that was they had an image problem where everybody kind of associated the NBA with ne'er-do-wells and whatever you want to say. I never mind.
The best thing about baseball,
the moral of the story is they cleaned it up.
The best thing about baseball was steroids. I just want you to know that.
But the NBA spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to clean up their image, and I think the NFL is afraid to get into that spot where regular people turn their TV off because they say, I don't condone that kind of action. And I think Deshaun Watson has been bad enough to say, the average person, if you ask them, Did Deshaun Watson do something wrong? They would say yes. And is it enough to get you to turn the TV off? I think a lot of people would say yes, and rightfully so. So if the NFL just says, hey, don't worry about it, we'll let you start week 1 and everything else, you risk alienating the people that rightfully so would turn it off because of what he's done.
It's going to happen anyways. It's going to happen with the quote-unquote cancel culture. It happened with kneeling.
It's not cancel culture when you actually do something wrong.
Hold on. Well, you're talking about negating the NFL. Just because NFL says Deshaun Watson can play 1 week and then get suspended, you're acting like it's going to annihilate all these.
Alienate is what
that's where I was going with. Is going to push all these fans away from the NFL.
And it should, if they turn a blind eye to it. Because
it's not turning a blind eye to it. See, that's what I'm saying. So then it goes back to my other statement. It goes, if they're trying to stop that from happening, why don't they just go ahead and suspend them?
If somebody killed 12 people at your work, and I know I'm getting extreme here, but if
extreme.
somebody did that and they're like, we hired this guy, would you want to work there? They say it has nothing to do with what you do.
He killed 12 people somewhere else and then hired them?
Yeah, exactly. You'd be like, maybe it's time to look for another
I'd be like, well, what kind of worker is he? No, I'm just
kidding. Seriously, though, again, it's all about will the NFL do the right thing? I would like to see Deshaun Watson. I'd like to see him wait, like you said, with him on the exempt list until this is all resolved and we have that totally finished, and then I want to see the suspension come down where we know what he did wrong.
But that's not happening.
I think the NFL will likely come down with a suspension. Like you said, it won't happen, but they'll come down with a suspension before the season is over, and I think it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah. I think people will still be upset by it, but I think ultimately the NFL is going to just take the chances of people saying that's not enough and turning it off, because 6 to 8 weeks looks like the NFL did something. And you may say it's not far enough, but I think people in general will say they tried or they did something. Even if they should have done more, they did something. And I think that's all the NFL wants. It's you to say, well, they tried.
Yeah.
They did what they could. And then next thing you know, it's going to be November. We're going to see Deshaun Watson out there again.
Mitchell says suspension on Watson until legal affairs are completed. Should have held himself at a higher standard and recognized that he is a known/famous professional football player. Got to watch every move you make.
He's right.
Yeah,
he's right.
Oh, as I say, that opens up such a giant conversation to be had.
How far down the rabbit hole?
It's so you're 100% right, Mitchell. It's you bring young men in there and you give them money and they believe that they own the world, and this is kind of not all of them, but this is kind of what gets thrown into the mix when that happens. Cameron, man, it's good to see you. He says the NFL is not going to be harsh as they should be. Look at those that stopped watching when players kneeled for the anthem.
Again, that's not a crime. I would say as a entity, and again, we don't talk politics here. That's one thing we push as hard as we can to not talk politics. But one thing I will say is it is a bit of a false equivalent between sexual assault and kneeling for the national anthem. Regardless of what you feel about it, again, it's one of those things that you can't really compare the two, because some people would say it's their right to kneel. Others would say the NFL should say you're representing us, you shouldn't be kneeling. I don't think anyone's out there like Deshaun Watson did something right. I don't think anyone is saying, hey, listen.
No, Nathan is. He's saying, just throwing that out there, it wouldn't have been easier if Watson would have got some hookers.
Yes. Is the long and the short of it. But power corrupts, as Drew said. Power corrupts, and at some point you feel like nobody can tell you that you are doing wrong at some level, and I feel like that's probably what happened with Deshaun Watson.
I mean, look at Robert Kraft. He was doing the exact same thing.
Well,
and it was
different, because Robert Kraft got caught soliciting prostitution, which, again, law around the bar, those women were for it and were getting paid, and the law was like, that's not right. The opposite is Deshaun Watson, who said, I'm doing this no matter what. It's sexual assault.
We really don't 100% know that's true.
We do about the lawsuit with Deshaun Watson. No women were suing Robert Kraft for what he did.
Yeah, because he probably paid them a lot more money than Deshaun Watson did.
Fair. But what I will say is, at the very least, the crimes in the eyes of the law.
And Robert Kraft probably has so much money that we would never even hear about that situation. Because as soon as it came up with the lawyers, that money would get so quick in that woman's hands that it wouldn't even matter.
I disagree. I think they tried to strong arm first. Because if everybody did that under the sun, no, I'm not. Because if every woman under the sun that did that, Robert Kraft would not be an NFL owner. He'd be broke. Anyway, again, it's not the same. It isn't the same. At the very least, what you can say about Robert Kraft, and everybody's kind of drawn that kind of thing. Women are filing sexual assault claims against Deshaun Watson, which means I didn't want to do this, and he made me do this. Different than Robert Kraft saying he paid me to do this. And I agreed. Is the difference. But consent, again, is the difference here between the two of them. We weren't in the room.
We don't really know if money's been exchanged for something like that.
We weren't in the room. Well, if you're going to a massage parlor, money's been exchanged.
There you go.
Okay. Anyway, I just hate that this is the topic for the offseason. Do you remember like a couple of years ago where we were talking about other stuff going on, like trade rumors and stuff?
Yeah, right.
Everything else. Right. And here we are just talking about like,
Ken, good to see. He says the national anthem has nothing to do with the National Football League, as has everything to do with that we live in the United States of America. Right. We should all stand up. If not, I'm not going to. I'm not going to go there any further.
Let me finish it off. He says that we should all stand for the national anthem, and if not, you should leave the country and leave it now. And I say cheers to that. We are all for it. But here's my point, Ken. We may not agree with that, but regardless of whether we don't agree with that, it's not the same as sexually assaulting a woman, and that was the point I was trying to make.
Your point. Right. And the reason I don't want to complete that sentence is because regardless of how I feel, I like to believe that – hold on, not I like to believe. I don't want to finish. I'm going to restart.
I just hate this offseason. We have to like carefully craft what we're saying.
It's so terrible. It's okay. Let me rephrase it. The reason I didn't want to complete that sentence is because regardless of how I feel, right or wrong, I would like to believe that whatever person's rights is, if they choose to sit during the national anthem, they get that choose to do that. They get to choose that decision. Right. That is
even if we see that is wrong, their life. You have the right to make the wrong decision, if that makes sense.
But
what you don't have the right to do is to go into a massage parlor. Never mind.
Okay, here's the issue. When Colin Kaepernick took a kneel, during the national anthem, everyone overblew it. If we would have just ignored the man, we would not care. And Colin Kaepernick would still not be in the NFL because he was terrible. So that's really the issue here we overblew what was going on. There was no reason for us to blow that up, and we did.
Right.
A man that wants to kneel during the national anthem, go for it, man. More power to you.
I may call you an idiot for doing it.
Yeah.
But the reverse is I think you have the right to do it. What I don't think you have the right to do, like I said, is to walk into 67 massage parlors and take advantage of the people that are supposed to be performing a legitimate and legal service that probably did not involve what you wanted it to involve.
Ian, good to see you. Zedekiah, good to see you too, man.
Absolutely. Ian, good to see you off that Richard account, man. I'm glad to see you're back on your main account. And you're off whatever I'm assuming is a Facebook ban, Ian. But it is good to have you back on the main account, man. Thank you for rejoining us.
Probably talking about not kneeling during the national anthem or kneeling.
Or Deshaun Watson and whatever he was doing. I don't know. Zeka says he put $50 down on the Bucks to win it. On the Browns to win it all about 2 months ago when no one thought Deshaun Watson would play. Oh, Zeka, let me say this. As far as bets go, I like the fading. I like the gamesmanship. You're trying to get that, like, off in left field, I'm going to make a fortune if they wind up doing it kind of play. But let me say this. If it's a full year, do you feel like you tossed that $2 down a well? Because it might be. It might still be. I love the idea. Scared money don't make money, and I love the fact that you're taking those kind of risks. But the question is, can the Browns stay good enough through 8 weeks, 6 weeks without Deshaun Watson to get to the point where they make the playoffs for you to make the money when he comes back? Let me know in the comments. Do you think it's going to happen?
I'm going to get back to more of these comments. Cameron says he agrees. There is a difference. But the fact is that Watson did not play in the NFL. He would be jailed for 15 to 25 years at least.
Cheers. The justice system favors people with a lot of money to avoid these problems.
Again.
But this isn't all around the bar anymore.
Robert Kraft. You don't hear that stuff because he has so much money. Those problems disappear.
Perhaps. But I will say this. You also didn't have women coming after Robert Kraft saying they did something wrong to me. The opposite.
You
was true.
don't
The
know
FBI,
that.
No, I do because the FBI.
How do you know that? How do you know that? Were you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind.
The massage.
Never mind.
No, the reason I know that is because all of Robert Kraft's situation came because the FBI said, we know what you're doing in this massage parlor, and we want to catch the guys that are asking for it. So they set up cameras inside these things. Before that, there wasn't a problem. The difference here with Deshaun Watson is these women are saying the FBI wasn't trying to catch Deshaun Watson, and still we feel like this guy did something that he should not have been doing to us. So
Cameron's agreeing with me. He paid
very
them before they came forward.
Yeah, Kraft. I think he paid him with the understanding of this is what's going to happen. And you could tell me it's wrong, and I would probably agree with you that this should not be going on in a polite society. But it is different than Deshaun Watson walking in there, and once the curtain is pulled, he says, "Here's how this is going down." Again, I think we're still comparing apples to oranges a little bit between Robert Kraft and Deshaun Watson, not just because one's an owner and one's a player, but because of what happened once the curtain was drawn and what people agreed to was going to happen beforehand.
One more comment here.
I hate that this is what we're talking about, man. It makes me sound like the bad guy. I'm not trying to sound like the bad guy.
I don't think you sound like the bad guy.
I think it's all wrong. But
I don't think anyone here is saying that you're doing anything wrong.
I know. I'm just saying. I just hate that I'm like sticking up for Robert Kraft because I think he's kind of a piece of shit. Am I allowed to say that?
No, not really. Cameron says, it's a right that we have. Unfortunately, it is extremely disrespectful to the flag for those who have served to kneel in front of the national anthem during the national anthem.
You have the right to say it, but people have the right to crush you for doing it for reasons, for whatever reason.
I would rather live in a society in a country that allows you to choose to kneel in front of a flag during the national anthem than persecute you and execute you because you kneeled.
And also the reverse. People who see that and say you should not have done that also have the right to express that view as well.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's what free speech is about. You have to worry about somebody that you don't like saying something that you also
let them say whatever they want.
Exactly.
Let them say whatever they want.
Exactly. Now, if I was the NFL, I would probably say, hey, guys, don't do those in my uniforms because I'm not trying to stir the pot.
And I love the stance that a lot of NFL teams took where it was, I think, the Dallas Cowboys said, none of my players will be allowed to kneel. I think that's okay. That is a business decision as a Cowboys organization. It's like you want to
work here?
Here, you do not kneel. Exactly. And I'm good with that. I'm 100% good with that.
And Ian says, we all get a happy ending after watching Sports Around the Bar. He says, oh, wait, what? Yeah, we'll be by after. Anyway. All right, Drew, worst to first.
Worst to first. We're going back to NFL talk.
Yes,
real football talk.
God, we're talking about actually playing football.
Worst to first.
Law around the bar that has been all offseason since the draft.
Worst to first.
Since A.J. Brown got traded, nothing has happened. Like, the world ended.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because worst to first, or first to worst is actually what I want to talk about. Is it your beloved Nashville, Tennessee Titans?
Look, A.J. Brown missed 4 games last year. Everybody else seemed like they missed significant time outside of Ryan Tannehill. Unless something happens to him, I don't think they're going to be in competition for the Houston Texans for the basement of this division. So I think the Titans are probably one of those teams that won the division last year that you could say there's a little bit. If Ryan Tannehill goes out,
yes,
maybe it's 4 or 5. They're in the race. They're in the race.
They'll be last.
But let me say this. I think the Titans stand a better chance if they lose their quarterback than the Chiefs do if Patrick Mahomes goes out. And that might sound rude, but
how dare you?
If Patrick Mahomes comes in for 2 snaps and his knee snaps backwards, the Chiefs are in trouble, Drew. Because I don't feel like their roster is as good as the Titans' roster is. I feel like they have some high points that are better. I think Travis Kelce is better than any receiver the Titans have. And Chris Jones, you might argue, is better than any defensive player the Titans have, even though I think Kevin Byard and Jeffrey Simmons are trying to take that spot. But don't cast stones when your team is just as reliant on one guy as mine is all I'm saying. I mean, if something happens to Patrick Mahomes, you don't think that Oakland, the Chargers, and the Broncos could all finish better than them?
It's a great division to be in. I wish I could have
a great division if Mahomes is hurt.
I wish I could have a cakewalk like with the Texans, the Jaguars, even the Colts, man. Yeah, you guys are so good in your crappy division. Why don't you get the first seed and lose the first time you play?
Cheers, Brian.
Why don't you get a first seed and lose the first playoff game?
To a Super Bowl appearing team. I almost said winning, but they didn't win. Super Bowl appearing team. They beat your team too, didn't
You're right. Yes, they did. AFC West is a very tough division.
We're still trying to figure out, but they did.
AFC West is a tough division. Yes, if we lost Patrick Mahomes.
All I'm saying is in the AFC West, do not lose your quarterback or you're in some trouble.
It would be a very
Chiefs,
bad year.
Broncos, Chargers, Raiders, do not lose your quarterback or you're in some trouble with the rest of that division.
Nathan says Dolphins worst to first.
The Jets were worse, right? Isn't that? Am I misremembering?
Either way.
Third to first?
Either way, worse in his world to first.
They're going to beat the Bills?
Can the Dolphins get the number one?
They're going to beat the Bills.
The number one spot in
Same
the
deal.
division?
Like, Josh Allen better snap the knee like week 1 or 2 because if Josh Allen plays half the season, you're going to steal 2 or 3 wins with this roster.
Tyreek make that much of a difference?
Backup. I like Tyreek Hill. I like Jalen Waddle, and I think the Dolphins are going to be good this year. I think they're...
All depends on Tua.
But their defense has been good. Brian Flores, right?
Yeah.
And Brian Flores is gone, but still the players are there. The Dolphins are like one of the X factors this year. Can we talk about that? Like they are one of the teams that I don't know what's going to happen because I respect what they've done.
I like their secondary, but I don't think it's like one of the best secondaries.
I think the front seven is quietly solid. They're not great, but they're solid.
So you're talking about a team.
So the defense is good, right? That's the 11 guys.
That's the 11 guys. So we're talking about a team that's really, again, and we could bring this up to every NFL team, is the play of their quarterback, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it either comes or goes with how your quarterback
and
plays.
How well has Tua played so far?
With what he's had. Is I think how you have to finish that sentence. With what he's had. Because he's had an awful offensive line.
I love it.
And before Jalen Waddle got there, and I guess you could say he had Devontae Parker when he started, but still, they certainly didn't seem to mind trading him to the Patriots this offseason. Look, he is the X factor.
See you, Brian.
For that whole team. I said that already.
Sorry.
He is the X factor for that whole team.
I didn't hear you.
Right? If Tua isn't good, the Dolphins aren't going to be good. And if Tua is good, the Dolphins are probably going to be pretty good with what they have. But are they good enough to beat the Bills?
I was going to say, but do they win the division?
Unless you get Josh Allen versus Jacksonville 5 or 6 weeks this year, where he's just like awful. And Josh Allen does go through those swings where it seems like 1 or 2 games out of every year he's like really, really bad. Unless you get that like on a longer stretch, I think the Bills are going to win that division. I think the Dolphins might be in the chase for second, maybe a wild card
Nathan thinks
team.
Buffalo's going to come out flat. He wants to bet on it. I wouldn't take. If I was him, I wouldn't take that bet.
What is flat? What is flat? Is it 1-3? Is that flat? 1-4? 2-5? What qualifies flat?
I mean,
if you can define it for me, we don't take bets from viewers anymore because when we win, people don't watch anymore, and when we lose, they're like, "Hey, give me what you owe me."
Yeah.
So
2-2, 3-3. I mean, flat's flat, right? It's 500.
So if it's 3-3, I would call that flat. With 17 games now, 3-3 isn't a worry. Once upon a time, if you were 2-4, you were done.
I think they're good enough, and with that extra spot in the playoffs, I think it doesn't matter if you start the season 3-3. It all depends on how hot you get. Look at Cincinnati Bengals last year. It's all about when you get hot.
Well, you landed Jamar Chase. That's more than anything, right?
But they got Waddle. They got now Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, they have
the receivers now.
I would probably still take. I know. I 100% will take Cincinnati receivers over the Dolphins.
Okay, but what did Cincinnati also have? They had Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
They don't have that in Miami. They had an offensive line that
I like the running back.
Middle.
I like the running back core of Dolphins. I just don't know it off the top of my head because I don't know. Look it up.
Okay, but my point here being that even though the Bengals were not good in the middle of their offensive line, especially in pass blocking, they still ran the ball semi-effectively. Like it wasn't good, but it was kind of like 3 yards in a cloud of dust. So you took a little bit of that pressure off of Joe Burrow. Miami's not going to have that this year. I know they brought in not Lyle Collins. Sorry, those are the Bengals. I know they brought in Connor Williams for the Cowboys. I know they have also done a couple other moves in the offensive line to try to make it better. But realistically, they're still probably like 3 guys short of having a group.
Frank says, "Don't sleep on the Jets." Sorry.
Every year we fall into this trap. Frank, you can't convince me. You cannot convince me.
All right,
I have washed my hands of the Jets. They're just going to be bad forever.
No, you're talking about the Lions.
They're just going to be bad.
Lions.
The Jets are the same team, dude. How often are we always like, they could win 7 games this year,
all right,
8 games.
Real quickly.
They're back on track.
Real quickly.
And then they win 4.
Dolphins depth chart at running back. Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel.
All guys that have been successful other places, but will they be successful here?
What I like about this is one goes down, you still have 2 legitimate starters in the NFL, at least 2 years ago.
Chase Edmonds was good when there were other guys around him in spurts. Raheem Mostert was good with Kyle Shanahan. Who was the third guy?
Sonny Michel.
Sony Michel was traded for a decent pick when the Rams were desperate. And then all of a sudden they said, well, we made a mistake. Let's let him walk. I don't love any of those guys. I'll be honest with you. Raheem Mostert's fast for his size, which is really impressive. He's a big back that's kind of fast. So I bet you he probably wins the starting spot. But out of all three of those guys, the line isn't going to be blocked. This isn't San Fran where the line is going to be owning everybody in front of them. That's not what's going to happen. It's going to be a struggle in Miami to run the ball still. It's going to be a struggle to protect the passer. I think that's what holds them back from winning this division. Period.
It's a possibility.
I think they'll be good. I think they'll win 8 or 9 games because they can throw, and they'll beat the bad teams. But I think when you play teams with good defensive lines, you don't have to call Frank out like that.
I mean,
say it. I like the Jets. They're going to win 7 games this year. We say it every year.
I like what the Jets are trying to do.
Yeah, you got me there. I like what they're trying to do.
It's better than the Bears.
The offensive line,
Frank. It's better than the Bears. What are the Bears trying to do?
No, you don't have to do that. Okay, but
I don't have to do what?
Take shots at Frank.
Frank is my friend. The offensive Frank is my friend, and
the defense should be better.
He can take shots at the Kansas City Chiefs all he wants. All he wants.
We've taken so many shots at Frank. He's like Swiss cheese over there, and I mean, all we've done is talk bad about the Bears.
Frank is stronger than that. It's more like he's like titanium.
I know. You're going to need to be when you watch the Bears play this season. Okay, Miami's not winning the division. Who else could be worse at first? Let's jump. Okay, is it the Giants?
No.
Dare I say it?
No.
Daniel Jones? No, I'm kidding.
Give me a break. Kidding. Give me a break. Cardinals?
They weren't worse. Seahawks were worse.
Dang it.
Yeah. And Seahawks ain't making it with Drew Lock.
Maybe there isn't one.
There has to be a... Could it be...
Cameron says the NFC North may be the second most competitive division.
I was about to say, could it be the Lions? Would it be... I know. We fall for it every year.
Stop.
I know.
God.
I know what you're about to say. But let me ask you this. Out of all the teams that have been bad, has anybody done what the Lions have done to correct their team? I mean,
to get worse? Yeah, they did.
They have a top 5 offensive line, Drew. They've brought in DJ Chark, which I know he's not a premier receiver, but he's not a bad... Did you see what DJ Chark did with Gardner Minshew under center? He was a legitimate deep threat. He was solid. And I know things fell apart under Urban Meyer. Surprise. Now they have T.J. Hawkins, who's a top 10 tight end.
I'm going to just say
it. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's coming on.
I'm going to say it. There is nowhere in the NFL.
If Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, if it's early, if he breaks his collarbone, the Vikings pile drive him into the ground like they did a couple of years ago. They break that collarbone, and he's out of the equation. Are the Vikings winning this division?
Who is the worst in the AFC West?
The Broncos.
That's the only one that has a chance. But I'm going to say it right now. There is no NFL team that's going to go worst in their division and win their division next year.
It'll be Houston. Matt Ryan will get hurt. Ryan Tannehill will get hurt. And Houston will wind up somehow beating Jacksonville in the best of the rest kind of event to go worst to first. Is there a first to worst? Is there anybody in this league that won their division last year that is going to finish 4th in their division this season?
Outside of injury?
Outside of Tennessee.
No, because that's injury, right? I mean, it all depends on Ryan Tannehill. If Ryan Tannehill gets hurt.
Ian, stop. Stop. He says he would put money right now on the Lions to win the NFC North. You talked me into him last year, dude. You can't do it again, all right? I'm still jaded.
Ian, I will send you my PayPal, and you can send me all the money you want for that. You just start throwing your paychecks.
It's like printing money. It's like a casino.
Yeah. And if they win, I'll throw you some money back.
Okay. First to worst, though. Who won their division last season? Is it the Rams that fall apart? Is it...
No. No way.
Okay. No way at all.
Not with Sean McVay.
I do like Allen Robinson coming in to play wide receiver. I think that's underrated. I know he quit on the Bears.
That defense is so good.
But he's only 29. Everyone feels like he's washed.
That defense, though,
He's 29. He's not... 29 is not old.
Allen Robinson is only washed because he played for the Bears.
Exactly, and now he's going to be playing with Sean McVay.
It's like
he's faster than Robert Woods. He's more dynamic than Odell Beckham even is. And he's going to be playing next to Cooper Kupp.
I understand he's not this caliber, but it's like when Randy Moss played for the Raiders, and they're like, oh, Randy Moss is washed. And they went and played for the Patriots, and it's like, oh. It's not going to be that caliber of, like, statistic, but Allen Robinson is going to flourish in this offense because Allen Robinson runs an amazing route and can catch almost anything that's thrown to him.
He's like the quintessential outside wide receiver.
Yes.
Tall, fast, runs routes well.
Yes.
And he's just the guy that's hard to cover. So I'm with you on that.
Shots fired.
Can I upset like 30% of Americans and say the Cowboys might go first to worst? Because I don't love where the Giants are at. But let me say this. The Cowboys, pound for pound, got worse. Period. Amari Cooper's gone.
Even though you don't
Lyle Collins is gone. Connor Williams is gone.
I got to stop you. Even though you don't consider Dak a top 10 quarterback in this league, you don't consider him a 20 or worse quarterback.
What if Dak gets hurt?
But you could say that about anything. What if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt?
I understand. I'm just saying, almost all of these equations come into like, what does the team do if the quarterback goes down?
We're talking about that's why I asked
you. The Cowboys,
we are literally talking about a healthy roster.
Okay,
a healthy roster.
Right. Healthy roster. I still think there's a chance they do, and it's because of the subtractions. What has been what makes? Let me grind this out. All right, let me finish the thought real quick for the offense. What has made them special? Dak was not a very good quarterback until Amari Cooper arrived. Amari Cooper's gone. The offensive line kind of picked up at the same time and became a top two. No, he was not very good. Do you remember everyone said it's not worth paying Dak to be the quarterback here? And then they traded for Amari Cooper, and all of a sudden Dak looked like the top 10 quarterback?
I'll have to look because I don't know.
He was not a special quarterback until Amari Cooper arrived. And then he looked special. Now he's gone. The offensive line, which has been a top 3 unit in the offense in the NFL for 4 or 5 years now, is losing Lyle Collins at right tackle. They're losing Connor Williams at right guard. They have, for the first time in 3 years, susceptibility in that offensive line where they may not have recruited, where they're going to be relying on a rookie from Tulsa to come in Tyler Smith to play meaningful snaps most likely, as well as Terrence Steele to play, who has been bad since he's been out there.
It's wrong. You're wrong about that. Mark Cooper did come later on. Dak was 2016. Mark Cooper came in 2018. But 2016, Dak put up 3,600 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions, and ended the year with a 104.9 quarterback rating.
Toss it out. I don't believe it.
That it didn't happen?
Yeah, exactly. I don't believe you. You're lying to me.
Yes.
Moral of the story is he was not as good of a quarterback without Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, I think, is the X factor, and we saw it with Derek Carr.
Well, any quarterback is going to succeed with a number one receiver, and
yes,
Amari Cooper is a number one receiver.
We also saw it with Derek Carr, where Derek Carr, when he had Amari Cooper, was special, and then that year where they got rid of him, and afterward, everyone's like, Derek Carr needs to be replaced by Oakland. Do you remember how many people were calling for Derek Carr's head on a plate?
I do, yeah.
Saying he doesn't need to be a starting quarterback? And it was right after they traded Amari Cooper and the roster fell apart. I think we're going to see something similar in Dallas, where the offense is taking a big step back.
Well, Cameron's agreeing with you. He says that the Cowboys are a possibility. Cameron, I think, you're crazy.
So it's not going to be Tampa.
I think Jake is crazy, too.
Just NFC. It's probably not going to be Green Bay, right? Outside, you said we have to ignore injury.
Yeah, there's no way it's Green Bay.
It's not going to be Green Bay. I think even if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, they're going to run the ball well enough that, sorry, Frank, they're going to beat Chicago, and they might even beat Detroit with the way they run the ball and play defense.
I almost want to bite my tongue, so I can't say this. Could it be Kansas City?
Yes, because the division is so good. I brought that up. It could be Kansas City because that division is so good. Because, if everybody stays healthy in those other teams, like Denver, the Chargers, and the Raiders, if something happens, regardless if something happens to Mahomes, even if it doesn't, you're in a dogfight. All of those teams are good. Even if they're not perfect, all of those teams have something that makes them special. Darren Waller and Devontae Adams together makes Oakland special at throwing the ball. Darren Waller is 6'8". And then you have Devontae Adams.
Stud.
Did you see what Devontae Adams did to everybody? I mean, if you get 80% of that in Oakland, that's going to be a hard offense to stop. The Chargers, that roster looks perfect. The Broncos have been saying how long, all we need is a quarterback, so they trade for Russell Wilson. Yes, it could be Kansas City.
It's not going to happen now.
It could be. And the reason I will say it's not my Titans, Houston and Jacksonville are still going to be bad, right?
Terrible.
They're still going to be bad. As bad as it goes for you, you might not go first to worst there. And it's not going to be Buffalo because whether it's the Jets, whether it's the Dolphins, whether it's the Patriots, one of those teams is going to disappoint. And I would even venture to say if something happened to Josh Allen, they would still manage to win some games because the rest of the roster is so good. I think Kansas City's at risk because all those teams are going to be winning 8 games.
So is there a beer bet that there is no worse to first or first to last?
That none of it happens? You're giving me the field, right?
Literally giving me the field.
Yeah, I'll take that. Anytime anybody gives you the field, you take the bet.
I feel like I don't like this bet, but I'm willing to do it.
Okay. So there's realistically 16 chances for me.
Yeah.
Because a team needs to go from number 1 to number 4, or number 4 to number 1. I'll take that. Cheers.
All right.
Cheers. You take that no matter what. First rule of betting, kids, if somebody offers you the field, you probably take it unless the odds are that bad against you. So, yes. Cameron goes on to say Houston will be bad, but the Jags will win at least 5 to 6 games. Am I out of pocket to say that I think Houston's going to challenge for that same 5 to 6 games?
No,
they won 4 last season.
We like Mills. I mean, we like him.
And it's year 2 for a rookie quarterback who is keeping Brandon Cooks working with him. The offensive line has gotten better with the way they have drafted Kenyon Green. I got to believe he's going to be better than what they've had. Titus Howard has been really bad for them, but like one of those guys they don't want to give up on. They have Laramie Tunsil, so hopefully, like with what they've done on the offensive line, they'll be a little bit better.
They should.
I think they'll have half of an offense. I think the defense will still be bad, but I think Houston's going to win 4 to 5 to 6 games too.
Ian says, don't forget Baltimore. They were in last year.
Were they behind the Browns? Is that right?
They're going to be second behind Pittsburgh.
Did they finish? I got to look it up. I thought it was.
I also have to pee because I'm like a few beers.
We're about done.
Down.
So we're about done. So
am I not allowed to leave to go pee? Is that what you're telling me?
Correct. All right,
guys. Well, it's
been
great.
a great show. I mean, not even joking. I think we've done a good job. I think we've covered all that. We took the beer bet, everything else.
Yeah.
Let me say this, guys. The offseason is in full swing. Thank you so much for hanging with us because we saw everybody in here, whether you commented, whether you were just kind of lurking in the background. Thank you so much for hanging with us. It was a fun show.
Yeah, guys, thank you for all the likes, comments, and shares. It seemed like a lot of people were involved, but I do want to give special thanks out to everyone. Ian said no hall pass for Drew. Jacob, Brian, Frank, Mitchell, Karen, Nathan, Cameron, Ken, Ian, Zedekiah. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, and we will be back next week to talk more Deshaun Watson, unfortunately, and everything else going on in the NFL and sports in general. So if you have anything else you want to talk about, make sure you throw it in the comments because we always will talk anything going on in sports. Thank you so much for hanging with us. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, dude, we can keep going. I just peed. We're fine. Let's go.
You just peed.
No, I'm kidding. I didn't.
All right, we'll see you next Tuesday after Drew cleans himself up. Again, I'm Jake. This is Drew. This has been Sports Around the Bar. Thanks so much for